What's up and what's happening, TPE fam? Welcome to episode 1 of the TPE Book Club. We're bringing this back because we want to cultivate an environment of learning through books that are written by authors that are focused on adding value to leadership. In this episode, we're going to be talking about Craig Groeschel's newest book, Think Ahead. Think Ahead is a book that's geared towards helping us get focused on making decisions, predetermining decisions that's going to help us get closer to our goals. Please join myself and Giovanna as we discuss part 1 of this book. What's up and what's happening, TPE fam? We're back with another special piece of content for you guys. If you follow us on our socials, we talked about bringing back the TPE Book Club, and this is exactly what this is. Myself and Giovanna will be leading the conversation around our new book that we're studying, Think Ahead. You can find this book wherever you purchase books, Amazon, Google, Target, wherever the books are sold. Most likely you'll be able to find this piece of content. There's also a correlating workbook that goes along with that. I'll let Giovanna, so you see Giovanna's holding that up if you're watching this video. But we want to first and foremost, before we jump into this, give a huge shout out to Craig Groeschel. I know Giovanna can attest to this, and several of you guys out there listening probably at one point or another have heard a podcast from Craig Groeschel or used some type of content from Craig Groeschel in your leadership journey. So we want to say thank you so much to Craig Groeschel and his team for giving us another piece of great leadership content that's going to help us pivot into our next. And so the purpose and point of the TPE Book Club is to continue to cultivate an environment of learning through books written by leaders who seek value. And we believe that Craig Groeschel is seeking to add value to the leadership landscape for all leaders, not just people who work in the QSR environment, but business sectors all across the country. He speaks to influencing leadership in that area. So we're thankful for him and his leadership and his team for putting this on. And so we're going to be talking about this book. This book is broken up into 7 core components, 7 core pieces, and we're going to be talking about the first component over the next video or two in the area of I Will Be Ready. Now, I want to say this before we jump into our content here, Giovanna, that I don't know about you, but this is a call to help us get recalibrated in the area of how we think about our decisions, how we think about our habits, how we think about the things that we do each and every day, big, small, grand, or minute, that contribute towards what we want to accomplish in our lives. But before I'm getting a little bit of ahead of ourselves. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Giovanna, whatever time you're listening for. I don't want to timestamp this too much. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. I actually have really enjoyed this book. I've actually listened to the whole book. I listened to the whole book in my car as I drove. I listened to the whole book. But now I'm going back and I'm working through the workbook with the book so that I can really, take this information and like digest it, I guess is what I would say. But it also has helped me, like when you said that we're like really looking at how we can take this information and we can apply it to our lives. I have realized I have a lot of really great systems and really great habits, but there are a lot of areas that I really need to tweak. I was making a list of, good life systems and habits that I have, and I was like, man, that one really needs some work. So I think it's always really good, even if you think that you're a habitual person or you think ahead, I think this would be a really good recalibration and just even like evaluating, do I really think ahead? Do I think ahead in all areas of my life, or is it just certain areas? So I'm excited to go through this book together as a TPE family and really actually hear from you guys on ways that you think ahead or ways that you don't think ahead. And hey, this has really made an impact just by reading this book together.
Most definitely. And so I'll just say this: if any of you guys listening to this follow us, you guys already know that Giovanna listened to the whole book. She is when we put something out there to get something done, Giovanna typically overachieves and outpaces the rest of us and gets it done. And so here we are again, another moment of that, which is okay. But a few announcements before we jump into the meat of our conversation. If you don't know, we host a monthly Lead Better which is a free virtual experience where we talk about leadership this coming month. In the month of April, myself and Giovanna are going to be hosting a Q&A style Lead Better that's going to be focusing on systems and processes. We believe that when you have good systems and good processes, those are the things that give lifeblood to the results in your organization. So you don't want to miss out for that. So if you have some time after this recording, or if you want to mass pause right now and head over to tpenow.com, go ahead and register for that event. It's 100% free. It's virtual, so you can join us anywhere you at any moment that you would like, or any place that you would like rather. And that's free, myself and Giovanna. And we have a form that you guys can fill out and be able to submit those questions for us to answer live during the Lead Better. So we hope to see you there. So today's lesson is going to be, again, I told you this is part one. I will be ready, and we're going to be focusing on the move the line component. And the number one thing I wanted to do in this, the first part of this conversation, is define moving the line as how I saw it, how I read it. And I define moving the line is modifying and moving the things in your life that stifle you from getting to where you want to be. And here's the thing. I think a lot of us get really geared up and get really excited when we talk about, yeah, what do I need to do to get to my next level? Yes, tell me, Alex, tell me, Giovanna, what is that one thing that I need to do to get to the next level? The thing that we need to identify first and foremost before we do that is, what is the level that you want to get to? And more specifically, I think there's some things that you need to think about categorically. Like when you look at your life, what categories, or as my friend Giovanna would say, what buckets are you trying to fill? And I want to kind of kick it to her to kind of speak to what are the 4 primary buckets in your life. And then before you attempt to move the line, what goals do you have in those buckets?
So if you want more information on these buckets, because I feel like I do a pretty good job of explaining these in our Lead Better session that we had in January. So you can go over to TPE and you can get on YouTube and you can look at that Lead Better session, because we talk a lot about habits in that first Lead Better session. And I think we did that in January. Obviously, people are setting, goals and New Year's resolutions. I hope you guys are still keeping those New Year's resolutions. But I talk about the 4 buckets, which physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual are those 4 buckets that you really want to say, okay, what goals do I want to set in each one of those buckets? And I think the thing that Craig Groeschel does really well, and he does this, I'm pretty sure this was the podcast that went along with the book. So before, or actually on the day he released the book, he put out a podcast about the book. And I think it was chapter 6 that he talked through in that podcast. But he says you have to have a compelling reason to achieve the goal. And so I have, for the last couple of years, instead of setting New Year's resolutions that I know I can't keep, because for years I did that, I have set one goal in each one of those buckets. So physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. What's your one goal? And your goal doesn't have to be something crazy. So I'm going to give an example of this where I failed. Y'all are going to love that. So I think it was 3 years ago, I set the spiritual goal to read through the entire Bible. And I think that's great. And there's a ton of people who've done it. And so you read through the Bible in a year. There's actually a podcast that goes along with it that you can listen to every single day. There's a book. I actually think it's back here on this bookshelf. Yep, I can see it right there. It's called The Bible Recap by Tara Lee Cobble. She does an amazing job of explaining what that section of the Bible is about. But I got all the way through March and I quit. And that's, I'm admitting that to all of you guys. I think it was 3 years ago. And I think the reason that I did quit in that area was because I didn't have a compelling reason to continue to read through the Bible. And so I think that's important when you're thinking about what your goal is, or where you want to push yourself to in those areas. What is your compelling why behind it so that you can achieve the goal? He gives an example of this, I think. And I think this was in the podcast, but he gives an example of this of like, if you set a goal to lose 50 pounds or you set some kind of weight goal in that physical bucket, if everyone's compelling why is going to be different. But if you go to the doctor and you get your blood work done and they're like, hey, you're pre-diabetic. If you don't lose weight, you're going to have diabetes. That's a really compelling why. Like, I got to lose 50 pounds because I'm going to be diabetic if I don't. They give you, the doctor literally gives you your compelling why. But you have to understand in those goals that you set in those buckets, what's the compelling why behind it so that you can actually live out and be consistent in achieving those goals.
Absolutely. And I can't agree any more than that compelling why. Craig Groeschel talks about there's a few things that really galvanize people towards a purpose. You know, it's a common enemy or a common purpose, right? And so in the context of this conversation, we're talking about the common purpose. What is your common compelling purpose or that why that will push you towards wanting to achieve those things in each of those buckets? So number one, guys, if you're listening, once we define what moving the line is, and we've already defined that as, hey, just getting that stuff out of the way that's stopping us from achieving those goals, then but before we can move anything out of the way, we got to understand what those goals are. So I want to challenge you, if you don't do anything else from listening to this content, is when you walk away from this, identify those buckets in your life. Do you have those 4 buckets present? How present are those 4 buckets? And then establish at least 1 or 2 goals in it. Now, we're going to have more call to actions for you toward the end of this. But if you don't do anything else and you walk away saying, man, that was a lot, where do I start? I would say start with looking at those buckets and where are you at in each of those buckets. Okay. And so in the book, also, Craig Groeschel talks about 3 major things that stop us from achieving the things that we want to do. And those 3 things are, number 1, being overwhelmed by choices. I know for a fact that I can easily be overwhelmed by just the multitude of choices. Actually, what the funny thing about that is, a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity for all you guys to come down, and your husband was talking about like decision paralysis based on choices, right? I literally, that just came to me when, as we're talking. I was like, I'm not the only one, and I would assume that Craig Groeschel knows that me and your husband isn't the only people who have that as a barrier to stop us from doing or achieving what we want to achieve. Number 2, yielding to the fear about making bad decisions that will result in painful consequences. I know there's a lot of folks out there who are just, they're stopped in their tracks because they don't want to make the wrong decision. They don't want to do the wrong thing, think the wrong thing, say the wrong thing. So they don't do nothing. And when doing nothing definitely doesn't get you towards where you want to be. And then number 3, and this is a big one. And this is depending on what relationship you're talking about, what relationship level you're talking about, this is definitely going to be present. And that number 3 is allowing emotions to disrupt our decision-making ability. I always tell people, man, your message can be fantastic, but the road in which that message is delivered on could invoke a emotion in yourself or the person you're talking to or what you're trying to get done, and that can stop all progress. And so those are the 3 things that Craig Groeschel outlines for us that will stop us from reaching those goals. And Giovanna has some really good commentary around a couple of those things. And so I'll, Giovanna, would you expound on those items?
So feeling overwhelmed by options, I think for that one, like the example that comes to mind is like certain restaurants. Like when you go to a restaurant who has a lot of options, it's almost like you can't make a good decision. And even worse, when you're really trying to like watch that physical aspect, you got to go places where the options are going to be good for the choices you're going to make. So I know there's certain restaurants that like I avoid just because the menu's too big. It's overwhelming when you look at all the options. But that's not necessarily one that I think I struggle with. My husband, for sure, in that podcast, if you listen to it, he'll explain it. But it even stresses him out, but he's so option oriented that like he just can't even make a decision because there's just so many options. When we go to a restaurant that has a lot of options, he's struggling. He's like, but this looks good, but this looks good, but that looks good, but maybe we should try that. So I don't necessarily struggle with that one, but I know a lot of people do struggle with feeling overwhelmed by options. Fear of making a bad choice. I think the leaders in the restaurant that I serve in, this is literally the one they struggle with, is making a bad choice. Well, what if I make this choice and what if the outcome isn't what we wanted? Or I think in that one too is like fear of disapproval by the leader that you work for. Like, what is Giovanna going to say if we do this and it doesn't work? And so I think that one for sure, like we see that apparent in our restaurants every single day, is they actually don't even make a choice to get us to where we want to go because they're afraid of what that choice, the outcome that choice is going to have. I would say for me, the third one, that is where I struggle. Like other emotions interrupting your ability to make good decisions or even communicating. I think you just said that, Alex. Like maybe we make the good decision, or, you know, maybe we make the decision to have the hard conversation, but because our emotions are still heightened, we can't get out what we want to communicate because we're just so upset with the decision that was made. And so I really struggle with my emotions interrupting my ability to make good decisions. And I think, you know, one thing I think about with that, like for that physical bucket, so it comes to like, I get to 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock and I'm like, man, I need to go home. And I'll say, man, I just have had a really rough day. I'm not cooking dinner tonight. Even though I've made a really good plan to cook dinner, I'm like, no, I'm going to reward myself. I'm going to pick up something on the way home so that I don't have to cook dinner. So I let my emotions interrupt my plans half the time because, you know, I feel like, well, I just deserve it. I deserve today was so hard that I just deserve that I shouldn't have to cook dinner. And so I think for me, number 3 is the one where I really struggle. Just letting my emotions dictate what's going to happen or the outcome instead of sticking to my guns. Like I make a really good plan, but my emotions will interrupt that plan. What is it for you, Alex? Like which one for you is the struggle?
Well, I was going to talk, I guess, on a decision making component, you know, and my struggle might be a little bit more dorky than yours, a little more nerdy than yours. And Giovanna knows this, and I'm sure people who close to me or who know me know this, but I don't want to say I'm techie, but I like tech, right? I like stuff, you know. I'm transparently, and this probably is going to be not shocking, but some people, I might get the side eye from some people, but I am an Android person first, like Android, Samsung, like that's my thing. But I do realize that Apple probably produces a product that's more universally used by more people, etc. So not to go down that rabbit hole, because I could talk about that all day, that part of it all, that one little part of it all day. But as far as like my task list and how I go about keeping my day productive, I used to struggle between writing down physical notes to writing notes on my Android device to keeping notes on my iPhone I used to just go back and forth in all these things. And then what I realized was I was being very counterproductive with where I was trying to go, because I was trying to house all my information from one place to another, or I left this notebook over here, or I don't have this device over here, or, you know, I was finding myself getting lost in productivity because I was trying to use too many things. I was trying to explore too many options to be able to do those things. So what I've recently done, in terms of moving the line, and in terms of, I've centralized all my task related things to one place, one app. And so this app is multi platform. I can go Android, I can go iPhone, I can go log into it on the Windows device. And I really have had to understand and kind of make myself say, this is the one thing you're going to use. Don't worry about all these other options. This is the one thing you're going to use. Even so much down here's the dorky part. You know, I have an iPhone now. I have a Samsung device, and on the Samsung you can double click to turn the camera on. Well, I've rerouted that button to bring up my task app. So whenever I want to write down a to-do list or a task, I just double click the button. So I've created a shortcut in my personal life that'll give me quicker access to that app, to where I can get the things that I need to done. Anytime, and even with y'all, anytime people say, hey, you need to do this, I go straight to it, and I try to build in the habit to get it onto that app, because that helps me move the line. Because if I don't, I literally was talking to someone at work the other day, and they asked me the questions like, hey, what systems have we said we're going to do that we hadn't? I said, you know what? every now and then I used to go into my old notebooks and just see what I wrote down to see if we're missing anything that we said we was going to do. But now that I've converted from that method to putting everything into one place and streamlining and getting rid of those other options, I've had some success. But I still struggle with that a little bit. I made a list on today to go to Home Depot in notes, and I shouldn't have done that. And I was like, you know what? That's bad. You're going against your habit in doing that. But yeah, no, I think the options piece is what kills me, big time.
I will say with that, Alex, like, and you just talked about a lot of techie things, and I'm not techie. So that would be, if you were to actually, there's 4 of us working in TPE currently. I'm number 4 when it comes to techie. So anything techie, I'm like, y'all go figure that out. But I do like apps, and I do like digital. So I don't use, well, I'm going to say I don't use, but I do kind of sometimes, here and there, like 5% of the time, I'll write something down on a piece of paper. But everything I do is all digital. And I think that that's one thing that I do have a couple leaders in our business that still use a lot of paper. And I am really trying to push them to digital, because you always have digital. Like wherever I go, the way that I organize myself is Google Docs, which is so basic. Like people look at it and they're like, you use a Google Doc? I'm like, yes, but I have Google Docs on my phone. And so I might be out and about, doing something, and I have a to-do list that's work related, and I have a to-do list that's home related. And anytime anything pops up or anybody asks me to do anything, I just go to that to-do list and I look at it. And then I, type it in. But I think like in the world we live in today, you just got to go digital, because if you have lists everywhere, one on paper, one here, one there, like you don't always have that with you. I don't always have a note. I used to have a notebook. I actually have in my closet right behind me here, like I think it's planners, probably 7 planners from years past. Not the last 3 years, because if you look at the last 3 years, I had that all digital. But before that, I had used these paper planners, but I wasn't as successful because I didn't always have that planner. It was in my backpack. What if my backpack was at home? Oh, well, how am I going to write that down? So I'd have to put it in notes, which is what I would use. But then I'd have 20 notes. So I think, call to action, I guess, first call to action, figure out your goals and your buckets. Second call to action would be move digital. Like there's so many apps out there, but pick one and go with it and try it out.
Definitely. So I want to put a pin in where our conversation is right now, because I think the ball is rolling, and I think if we keep going, we probably got at least another 30 minutes to an hour on this one topic. But the point of the book club, we want to give you something concise. We want to give you something that you can walk away with on your commute to work, from work, when you get a moment for lunch, just to kind of consume some content that'll help you pivot into your next. And so I want to give a brief recap on what we discussed today. Giovanna, you give us some final call to actions, and then we'll close out. So number 1, we talked about, again, we're covering the book Think Ahead by Craig Groeschel, and we were talking about part 1, I Will Be Ready. And we really focused on moving the line. And so number 1, I defined moving the line as I saw it, and that was moving and modifying things in your life that stifle you from getting to where you want to be. We've identified that, hey, in order to move the line, we first need to identify what areas that we want to move the line in. And we saw that physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual are some buckets that we should consider in our lives, of places that we should establish goals and compelling whys and for us to move the line in. We did identify 3 things that will stifle us from moving the line. Number 1 is being overwhelmed by choices. As you guys clearly heard, me and Giovanna's husband, Jeremy, have issues with that. Number 2, yielding to the fear about bad decision making that will result in painful consequences. And number 3, allowing emotions to disrupt our decision making ability. So I hope you guys heard something today that will stick with you, that will help you move on into your next. And Giovanna, you got a couple of call to actions for us as we close this one out.
Yes. So I put some areas of predecision in my life that I kind of wrote down a couple things that have really helped me move the line in certain areas. 1, I limit myself to 45 minutes of TV every day. I really like to watch, it's kind of like my way to take my brain from all the things that have been going on all day, but I limit myself to 45 minutes because the second thing is getting up by 6:15 every morning. That is a must for me to be able to get things done. I'm most productive in the morning. And so from about 6:15 to about 8:15, I actually do a lot of really hard work in those 2 hours before I actually go to work. And that helps set me up for the day. And then I said my third one that I'll bring up is setting a dinner menu. I do this every Sunday. I set a dinner menu for the entire week for our family. I actually brought the dinner menu to show you guys. So this was, I think, $9 on Amazon, and there's nothing on it because I tore off the one for this week. So y'all didn't see our dinner plans. My husband might be embarrassed by that because there are some days where it says dinner on your own. And this is also like my grocery list on the side that I make, but I do this every Sunday, and this really helps our family be successful around meals. That was one area that my husband was always stressed out about. He's like, what are we eating for dinner? One day, 16 years into marriage, we're actually almost married 17 years. So I've only been doing this about maybe a year, 6 months to a year. He said, hey, what are we going to eat for dinner tonight? And I looked at him and I said, you've been asking me that same question for 16 years. And what's my answer? I don't know, because I've been so busy throughout the day that I just didn't have a really good game plan. And so I've started using this, and it's a paper, you just tear it off. It's got magnets on the back so you can stick it on your refrigerator. But this is one area that I've really worked on, and it's really helped our family be more successful with dinner. But my call to action for you is, and this is in the book, the workbook, I'm sorry, not the actual book. This is in the workbook, and he gives you a call to action, and he says, make a list of temptations to avoid. So I'll use the dinner one. Like my temptation for dinner was just like throw something together, buy something on the way home, spend more money I don't need to spend. So make a list of temptations to avoid. That was a temptation to avoid. Where the line has been, there was no line at that point. Like I was just doing it on the fly consistently. And where do I want to move the line to? So I moved the line to every Sunday, I'm going to make a list of what we're going to eat for dinner for each day of the week, make a grocery list, actually order groceries on Sunday, and then I'm able to pick them up and I'm ready for the week so that we can have more healthy meals. We can actually have meals. There were times where it was like cereal and milk because that's what we got. So that's where I moved the line to. And so now I've really stuck to that. And that's really been really helped our family be more successful for dinner.
Awesome. So there you have it, guys. Part one. Definitely hope that something was said here that will help you pivot into your next. If you're watching this and you got somebody in mind that you think needs to move the line, share this video with them. Encourage them to join us for the next the next book club video. Also, if you're interested in getting connected with myself, Javon, or any of the other coaches here at TPE, I got an announcement. Leader Square is our leadership community, and it's 100% free. That's right. It used to be a monthly subscription. Now it's going to be free. So head over to tpenow.com. You can join that group, get connected with us. We're having conversations like this and more in that group. And then also don't forget to sign up for the free monthly Lead Better. As you can see here at TPE, we have a lot of things going on that are geared towards the success of the leader in the QSR space and beyond. Myself and Javon are very passionate about leader success. So get connected with us and figure out how can we help you be more successful. And so this concludes this episode of the book club. And until next time, TPE family, peace. So much for tuning in. We hope something was said that will help you get better at pursuing the goals that you want to pursue in your life. Tune in next week as we continue this study around Think Ahead. Be sure to head over to tpenow.com to get connected with us, whether that's for more coaching, to participate in the free Lead Better. There's so much going on at tpenow.com. I just want to encourage you to get connected with us. And until next time, TPE family, peace.